Okay, double check. Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone to our Children's Book Insider member only Ask Me Anything webinar. I am Laura Backus, if this is the first time you've joined us or if you're a new subscriber. And this is a very exciting month for us here at CBI. We are celebrating our 27th year in business this month. And we're really proud of that. We've outlasted a lot of publishers and other businesses, but a lot of new publishers have also popped up during this time. So we're really happy to see all of that. I know some of you who are watching or listening on the recording have been with us since the beginning. And I want to thank you in particular for being loyal subscribers and for being with us through your writing journey and for letting us know when you get published and all of your exciting news. It really makes our job exciting and wonderful and joyful to know that we have a small part in your success. And so that's just great. We love that. I'm actually going to turn on my chat box here because, hello, Evelyn, nice you made, thanks for being here. If all of you today, you might not have looked through your email yet, but you got an email from John because we are having a big sale in honor of our 27th anniversary. We are all week 27% off our select writing blueprints on our writingblueprint.com site, as well as membership to Children's Book Insider. So I'm going to put the link here in the chat box in case you missed that email. And if you want to click on that link, not during the webinar, but after, you'll see everything that is 27% off in honor of our anniversary. It's just a little thank you to all of you for being our subscribers and being part of our lives. It makes, like I said, you make what we do fun and very rewarding. So there we go. So normally the way these things work, if you're new to our Ask Me Anything webinar, it's usually just me here. And it's literally Ask Me Anything. You send me your questions in the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, and I just answer whatever questions you have about writing, publishing, what's going on in the business right now. But today I have a guest and I'm really excited. So I am going to stop sharing and so we can bring up Rob Broder. So Rob, if you could please turn on your camera and microphone. Rob is the president of Ripple Grove Press. Hello, Rob.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
So Ripple Grove Press is a small independent publisher specializing in picture books. And Rob was kind enough to be here tonight to tell us all about what he does and what he's looking for, which is really exciting. So Rob, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and Ripple Grove Press?
Sure. My wife and I run a children's picture book publishing company. We started out wanting to start our own business, and we talked about many, many things. And one day, basically, we were reading picture books to our daughter and started talking about them. And we kind of just talked about starting a publishing company. So we did research on how to start a business, and we started learning about the publishing industry. We had no previous background in the publishing industry. My wife is an art history major, and I, a long time ago, was a preschool teacher where I would make up stories and read stories to the children every day. So this is just something that stuck with us, and we went through it, and we figured out how to receive submissions, and we started receiving submissions to our email and our P.O. box within a week of it being posted, and that's been happening ever since. We've received submissions every day in our inbox.
Mhm.
And we've been doing this now for 2.5 years. We have 10 books coming out. We'll have 10 books this August, and we're working on to hope to have 4 books next year for 2018, and
Wow.
4 for 2019. We have some books being worked on for 2019 right now.
Mhm.
Um, so that
And you and I were chatting a little bit earlier. I was saying that's actually an impressive number of books to have out in such a short time, especially for a small press. People who haven't worked in the business don't realize how much work goes into getting a picture book from manuscript to publication.
right.
And for a small company like yours to have that many books actually out in a couple years is pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And in looking through your catalog, it looks like your picture books have a very,
This
yes,
one.
there you go, a very timeless quality to them, and a very artistic slant. You know, the illustrations are very, each book has a very different style of illustration, which I like, but all of them are very artful. Is there
Thank
sort of a overall tone to your list of things that you're looking for, or is it just you publish what comes in that you love?
It's both. We do everything we publish, we love. I mean, our heart and soul goes into every book we make just as much as the writer and just as much as the illustrator. Um, but we do want every book to be different. We want the style to be different. We strive to make a beautifully illustrated book, and we look for a well-written story that complements the art, or the art complements the story, and hoping it reads well and hoping it resonates well. We've always said this before, we kind of look for stories that capture a moment. You use the word timeless. We look for stories that capture a moment more than, has a big moral at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I noticed that many of your picture books are longer than the standard 32-page length, which is what, the majority of picture books on the market are 32 pages long. Do you allow the story to dictate the length, how many pages you have?
Most of our books are, they're not 30, they are 32 pages, but it comes out to be 40 pages because if you take the end papers, it's technically 40 pages. We just came out Graduation Day, which went a little longer. So to answer that question, that book I believe is 52 pages. It was basically the artist and the writer, who was the same person, Pio Parda. We don't have any kind of rules. Like, we want to tell the story. If we need to go over, we'll go over if it means continuing to tell the story. We try to stay in that range, but if the artist is working on it and the artist feels like we need some more pages added because it'll help tell the story better, we're open to that and we're open to discussing it. But most are 32 pages, but if we go over, it's okay.
Great. A lot of writers will be happy to hear that. Because a lot of publishers are very strict about that 32 page.
No, we've talked, people send us word counts, and I mean, if anyone knows the book Yo Yes, there's not a whole lot of words in Yo Yes, so we're okay with, we're not really focused on word count. I mean, I don't want a novel, but, and even if I like your story, we might talk about, taking a section out and stuff if we work together, but yeah, I mean, we're not focused on word count.
Right. So who does the editing in your company? Is it both of you and your wife, or do you hire outside people to help you with the editing?
So when we receive a story, and at this point, a light bulb really has to go off. So when we really see a unique story, or really beautifully written, then Amanda and I talk about it. If we will edit it ourselves in the beginning, but an editor does see the book when the book is read, before we even send it to the printer. We do have an editor, but not before. We are the ones editing the book the story as it comes, if we are going to contact that writer, we contact them. And we've pretty much edited almost every book, every story. And then so we just signed a story called October, and that's for 2019. I still need to find an artist for it. And that already has been, changed a little bit. The ending was shortened a bit and things like that.
So when manuscripts come into you, do you look for things that are pretty much done as far as the writing? They might need a little bit of polishing, the ending might need to be shortened, etc. Or if you see an idea that is wonderful, but the writing needs a lot of work, will you work with the writer to shape it?
That's a great question. Yes. To answer your question, if I read something and I'm liking the style and I'm liking the pacing, I'm liking the characters, I have the whole, as I'm reading it, I can see the whole story playing out in my mind. Absolutely. And then I'm like, why did that happen? That's okay. I'm willing to call you and talk to you and work it out. Of course, I'll share it with Amanda, and we talk about it. We're like, before we call them, let's talk about, 1 or 10 scenarios. And we call the writer and we say, we love the story, we love the writing, it's so creative, it's so fun and different, but are you open to this? Are you open to that? And let me throw some ideas that we were at. Okay, you like 2 of those ideas? Well, why don't you rewrite it and send it back to me, and we'll see how it plays out. And then if we and then it's just the dialogue is open, and then we start really honing and getting to the story where we like it and where it's fun. We've changed a few of our endings even. We've called people and said, we love it, but we want to change the ending. But if it's really speaks to me at this point, because I've read thousands of submissions, the story just needs to really pop. There's someone we're talking to right now. She's an illustrator who submitted her concept, and I said, okay, now we've got to write something. I said, I really like your art. I really like the concept a lot. It's going to be really fun. The characters are really fun and sweet. Let's get a story together. And I'm willing to work with that person on back and forth to really get the story to where we want it.
Okay, that's great. I'm sure a lot of people are really happy to hear that.
Yeah, no, if the story speaks to me. And then the other thing too is if the writer submits a story, we have discussion and then we talk it back to them like, what are the characters? Oh, you were picturing people? Well, you know what? We were picturing forest animals, or we were picturing farm animals. We were picturing, it took place in a zoo. You were picturing an apartment building? Well, we were picturing, so we talk about where it takes place, what the characters should be. That's a whole other thing too. And then we can change it around.
That's great. Do you allow your authors and illustrators to communicate during the creation process, or do you keep them separate?
Separate. I don't want the illustrator, I don't want the writer to, I don't send them things too much until it's really starting to happen, because we have experienced that and it's too many opinions. And the writer's going to say, that's not what I was picturing. And it's like, well, you're taking the creativity away from the illustrator. You're taking it's a very large majority is me and the illustrator. So we're going back and forth and we're talking it out and we're saying that character should be happier, change that. Oh, what, make that darker, move that over a little bit, or, make the character smaller because I want to see more of the landscape. So there's more discussions like that. And if we threw the writer in, who obviously we picked your story, we liked it enough to pick your story, you have such a imagination in your head of what it should be, you got to let that go and trust us that we're going to do our best to make a really beautiful picture book.
Great.
So yeah. Most of our books right now, unless the illustrator is the writer. Most of our books, the writer is not involved. They'll see things that we post. They'll see things actually when we just post it for social media, because we like to do little teasers. Kind of, even a year out, we like to post things saying this book's coming soon. Check this out. Look at this from the drafting table kind of thing.
Are you considering adding nonfiction picture books to your list at any point?
Not at this moment. If somebody submitted something where it was a story, we would certainly be discussing it. But right now, I'm looking for really fun, funny, unique stories.
Okay, great. And you mentioned social media. What kind of promotion do you do with your books? And explain how they're distributed, because a lot of people don't know how small presses get distributed.
So we get our books printed overseas. F&Gs, fold and gathers, are sent to us to send out to reviewers. We send them out to every appropriate channel we can think of for reviews, to get the book noticed and to get a review from the book. So we have a whole list, and then if a book has a certain subject matter, we even try to think outside the box and who else we can send that book to. Those are all sent to, so from our printer, they're sent to us. The rest of the books that we print are sent to our distributor, who is now Small Press United, IPG, in Chicago. So the books get sent straight to Chicago. And so they get distributed that way. So when a bookstore in Homer, Alaska wants a copy, they can go into their database and order a copy, and books will be sent to them. And that's it. And so from there, we use social media, and with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and promote the book. And we try to do local events. We ask our author and illustrator to do local events as well. Contact your library and your local bookstores and do signings when the book is released. But now we're at the point where we are sending F&Gs out 6 months before the book is released. We were sending them out about 4.5 months, and now we're even backing that up.
Yeah, those reviewers need that much time to kind of schedule it.
So now we're even now. So we have a book coming out. Well, Grandmother Thorne's coming out in August. That's already been sent out. And then we have a book coming out, I think, the end of March, and we'll have that ready very early fall.
Yeah, there's a long lead time with publishing, and especially with picture books, you have to, the illustrator has to do their job, and that can take quite a while. Yeah. All right, well, let me see some questions that people have asked here. Let's see. So Della asked, what do you see too much of in terms of submissions, and what would you like to see more of? I think she's talking topic-wise, that kind of thing.
I see a lot of rhyming, and the subject matter of the rhyming just varies from everything from cooing at a baby to fighting off ninjas or something. So I see a lot of that. I see a lot of their new baby is beautiful. I love my new baby. My new baby is terrific, and my new baby is annoying. I see. That's what we see a lot of. We see a lot, and a lot of people write that we receive. We receive a lot of stories that have like a real moral from the very beginning, and I'm not, I just really like a sweet story. I don't know. It's very hard to explain, but I just want a story. I mean, this is about going for a midnight walk and giving her a kiss at night. He meets up with his lady bat friend, and they kiss each other goodnight, and that's it. This is about a restaurant opening, and they realize there's a key ingredient missing when they're opening up their restaurant. The old man, you know, a man realizes he doesn't have a bed and he makes him a deal that's really just about kindness. You know, sharing. This is just a mother and 2 daughters experiencing doing laundry on a Monday while the dad is out at work. So,
yeah,
you know, it's just a girl chasing the moon. And I hold up all my phone. So we're just, I grabbed them because, you know, it's just a sweet story. So, but we receive a lot of, it's hard to explain. It really is. We receive submissions every day, and I just see a lot of the same things, and a light bulb really has to go off when I see it.
It sounds like a lot of your stories are kind of slice of life, like you were talking about earlier, little incidents and events that it's not necessarily a big problem to solve or a huge plot arc. It's just these nice little slice of life, like you said, sweet stories.
Exactly. If you can capture, you know, like Monday is wash day. The 2 girls are just, it takes, supposed to be in 1948. It's about 2 daughters doing laundry. The story was so well written, it just resonated with us, and we moved forward on it. It's exactly the perfect wording is a slice of life.
Yeah. Do you have, you know, some editors say, I don't want to see adult characters in picture books. Or a lot of editors don't like talking animal stories, that kind of thing. Do you have any?
No, it has to be well written. It has to be well written. If you say adult characters, I'm going to say, well, let's make those adult characters raccoons. You know, I'm trying to think of how my imagination can go. So it just really needs to be well written and at this point different.
Okay. Another question here. On the Ripple Grove website, it says no illustrator notes in the submission guidelines. Does that really mean no illustrator notes in the manuscript?
No, but if it's really important, then put it. If you really need to tell me, because we get this, it'll say illustration note, green bucket, character grumpy. I don't want to see that. I want my illustrator I want the illustrator to make the bucket whatever color they want. I want, you know, and maybe they're not grumpy. So I'm using that as an example. So unless it's like important to telling me the story, don't put it. It ruins my pace of reading the submission. It's not necessary. Let me like the story because I'll call you and then we can talk about illustration notes.
Great. The kind of rule of thumb that I always tell people at CBI is if there is something that has to happen in the action of the story to make the story make sense, but it's purely conveyed through the illustration, so the illustrator wouldn't know it from the text, then you can put an illustrator note. But if it's details like you were saying, the bucket should be green or the girl's hair should be red or whatever, that's up to the illustrator.
And we get that a lot, you know, and if you don't need to write like slipped on the banana peel. I want to know it through the story. And let me just get through the story of what is happening with your story.
Right.
And discuss illustration notes later. And don't put page breaks, please. I don't want to know what you think should go on page 2 and 3. Because that ruins my vision, that ruins the flow of reading it. Don't put lines either, like between each sentence to kind of imply.
Right.
Because it doesn't help the flow of reading it, and that also changes as the illustrator's sketching out the book. It's not going to help that you think this should go on page 2 and 3. Let the illustrator figure it out and move things around.
Right. Now I'm seeing some questions here that are really addressed to me, and what I'm going to do is save those for the end after we get through Rob here, because I want to take advantage of having him here. But I will definitely get to your questions at the end. So Tori asks, she says, I freeze up when I even think about writing a query letter. And she's asking, if her query letter isn't perfect, will that go against your reading her manuscript, and how will you judge her manuscript if her query letter isn't great?
Who asked that question?
Her name is Tori.
Tori, that is a great question. Your query letter does not really affect my decision with Ripple Grove Press because we go right to the story. I want to read your story. I want to see how it's written. I want to be wowed. I want to see something really fun and different and see how well you write. Then I go to the query letter. Then I want to see where you're from, what you're about, and whatever you wrote, whether someone wrote even just sentence. I sometimes don't even get query letters. I just send their story, which I like a query letter because I do look, if I really like your story, I'm going to read your query letter. But I want to say that because I want everyone to understand we get submissions every day. So when I do sit down and I read those submissions, I'm still, right now, I believe I'm at the end of March. So I go to the latest I haven't read. So everything up to today. So we have right now about 500 unread submissions. So when I get into that zone, when I'm sitting at my desk, I go right to the story. I look at the title. The title has to speak to me too. I have an article on titles. If the title really speaks to me and then the story speaks to me, then I read the query letter.
Great. Is the article on titles on your website?
It is. It's under our submission guidelines. I think there's essays, and it's like you can judge a book by its title.
Great. Everybody read that, please.
Yeah. But it's, and please know it's not, and people put a lot of time into the queries, and I want to know I absolutely want to know where you live. I want to know what your background is. I like all of that. I like if you know what you've been writing and things like that. But I read so many submissions, I have to go right to the story. And
yeah,
I want the story to speak to me, and then if it does, I can't wait to share it with Amanda and discuss it and call you.
Can you give us a rough idea of the percentage of books that you think, with this pile of 500 manuscripts that you have to read,
right?
What percentage do you think are actually going to, jump out at you and make you take a closer look?
I don't know. I don't know what percentage. I mean, we publish, this year it's 3 books, next year it's 4. So we publish 4 books out of 3,000 submissions.
Yeah.
So, and please know, if a light bulb went off if I opened up my inbox and I read 4 stories back to back, I'm going to reach out to you. I want that story. I want to publish something. I keep saying that over. I just want to publish something really different and fun and well written.
Yeah.
And I also FaceTime. Not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but I also FaceTime. I want to meet you. I want to see what you're like. I want to see what your personality is like. We're going to form a relationship here. You're going to be part of our umbrella, our family, and we would also want to meet you. We want to see. So the query letter, getting back to the query letter, I want to see how professional you are. It doesn't have to be stellar. The story would be nice if it's stellar, but if the queries, I just want to meet you and start that relationship.
And I want to let everybody listening to this know that this is the difference between working with a small press and a large publisher, because you get a lot more personal attention with a small press. And that's not to say anything against the big publishers, but those editors just have way more authors that they are handling at any one time, and they would love to be able to say the query doesn't matter, I'm going to go straight to the manuscript. But sometimes they only have time to read through the query letters and pick out manuscripts from that. So obviously working with a small press, you get a very different experience, which is wonderful. But I want to also say, if you're submitting to Random House or Scholastic, chances are, if your query letter isn't great, they're not going to read your manuscript. So that's just the reality of the business, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've heard, this is just something I've heard, some people, they want an author with a huge following. So when the book comes out, it's ready to go. I just want a really great story.
Yeah. Well, we've had several questions here about.
No, I mean, it'd be nice to have your help too, though.
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. And we've had several questions here about, are you looking for authors who are very active on social media? Is that sort of a requirement, or who want to do a lot of marketing? Obviously, you'll support them if they do that. That's always great. But is that kind of an expectation that you have?
At this point, it would be really nice, but it's not necessary. But it would be nice if they share things on social media, because I do believe it has an impact on sales. So if the writer just disappeared after the book was published and didn't do anything, it doesn't make me want to work with you again. Not to say it, depends on the writer. I hope we like each other, and again, like I said, it's a relationship. It's not necessary, because I'm hoping that the story and the illustrator that we find for the story is just so beautiful but obviously it would be nice if they're on Facebook or Twitter and they're resharing things, and just as excited as we are. They'll go to their library and order the book and bring it into their county and things like that.
Right. And that's another reality of the business. Writers and illustrators need to also be marketers. But you should be proud of what you've created, should be excited about it.
Exactly.
And want to
show. We put a lot of time into making your book. It takes over a year. From the time we call you to editing it and discussing your story. Your book's not going to come out for well over a year. So there's a lot of heart and soul that goes into it. So, getting on social media or going down to your local bookstore.
Yeah.
Because we send out, we do just as much as we possibly can for our little press. We make catalogs. We send out promo cards for each title. We do advertising when appropriate. So.
Yeah, that's great.
And we do local events too.
Great.
Conferences and things.
So a couple people have asked who joined us a little late. So Rob is from Ripple Grove Press, and it's ripplegrovepress.com, the website. And you're in Portland, Oregon, right?
I am in Portland, Oregon.
Great. And we did have a question. Do you only work with American authors, or will you work with someone from another country?
We would. We receive submissions from all over the world. We really do, and that's great. And I read all of those stories. We have an author illustrator that we've worked with on May and the Moon. She is American, but she lives in Vancouver, Canada. So we do work with her up there. And she's coming out with Seven the Sun next year. We're actually finishing it up right now. If I would be open to working with a writer that's overseas if the story was really wonderful. I think I've said that. I said that too much tonight, but
that's okay.
That's to us.
And I imagine if you're a writer overseas, but you're very active on social media, that will help as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. A couple people have asked, what age level are you looking for? Now, these are all picture books that you are publishing. Is there a sort of a certain age range in the picture books that you are looking for?
I'm not really looking for baby board book stories, if that helps at all. But if I had to pick, two 2.5 to 7, if that gives you the. I mean, I feel a lot of stories are appropriate for 2-year-olds, just as much as a 7-year-old, even though they're completely different people.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say about that. I think our books, I mean, May and the Moon is about a girl who follows the moon, and she notices the phases are getting thinner and thinner until the moon disappears. And I think this is appropriate for from 2, 3, 4. I just nice, wonderful read.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A couple people have asked, I'm sort of combining questions here.
Hi, Bev.
Would you be interested in, say, retold legends, fractured fairy tales, that kind of thing, or do you want all original stories?
I would prefer original stories. I'm going to use this as an example. I've seen it in writers, and I've seen it with illustrators too. If you're going to retell me Hansel and Gretel, it's been done. Illustrators will send me Hansel and Gretel, like 2 kids going up to a candy house. I've seen it. If you have a different take on it, please know I read everything. So if I read it and it spoke to me, it would be discussed. But I would prefer something completely different that has not to do with Hansel and Gretel and all those other retold stories. And I would also, but if you told something about fairies and dragons, that's, again, how's the story going? I mean, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you mean by retold, the 3 Little Pigs and things like that, I do get that. I get a different version of, the 3 Little Pigs. It can be the 3 Little Ducks. It can, but it's the same concept, and I'm not interested in that at this point.
Right. Let's see. Anonymous viewer asked, what if the writer already has illustrations done by someone else? Should he or she send them along with the story?
That's a great question. If the illustrator is phenomenal, send it. If you think it will make but even when that happens, I still read the story, because I can call you and say, I really liked your story, but the illustrations didn't speak to me. Would you be open to it? That hasn't happened yet, but it kind of hurts your story if it's not professional. Mm-hmm. If your friend just illustrated it, it's going to hurt your story. I'm not going to be able to get past what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. So it really has to be, because we do get that. We get people that illustrated themselves, or had their friend illustrate it, or had their aunt illustrate it, and it does hurt your submission personally for me, because it's not at a level that I would be interested in publishing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I hope that answered the question.
That's great. Carol asks, how well do sweet stories sell? How are your books doing in the market? We've heard sometimes that the quieter stories, the stories that don't have a real action-packed plot, sometimes take longer to build an audience. So how have you been finding this?
Well, it's a mix of getting out the name of our press, because we are independent, we are family owned, and we're fairly new. Mm-hmm. So with that, we are, the mother and daughter doing laundry together is a quiet book, but to this day, it's our best-selling book. It won a Kirkus Star. We're having interest in it being printed in another language. So with that said, we really just look for a really nice story. If it's quiet, but it's really speaks to us, we'll move forward on it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I think, again, that's another difference with a small press versus a large publisher. You publish what you love, and you find the market for it, rather than relying on something that's going to sell a lot of books in the first 6 months, and if it doesn't, then it goes out of print. So, which is how big publishers have to operate because they have such large overhead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I want a story I would like to see a story that keeps going, that it will always, you'll always want to sit and read that story. Somebody I saw in the chat box put something about, are we interested in series? I get submissions about series. I get submissions about, and again, this is an example of a Little Red Duck. I got a series of Little Red Duck. You're going to love it. And Little Red Duck goes to the pond, and Little Red Duck goes to the market, and Little Red Duck goes to school. I'm interested in, first of all, I want to work on the first story and see how it goes before I think about making a second and third book with you because of our size. So when I do see series, I'm like, I'll still read it, but I do shy away because it's not, I'm not thinking of 3 books with that one writer right now of the same character, because I would need to see how that character, first of all, sells before we illustrate another book. I wouldn't jump immediately into that next book. We would have to wait quite a while. Mm-hmm. So to answer that question on the series. And please don't, getting back to queries, don't tell me that I'm going to love your story. That's a joke. I get that a lot in the queries letters. Ripple Grove Press, you're going to love my story. This story's, I'll read it. We'll get to it. And yeah,
you'll decide if you love it.
Keep your queries short and sweet.
Yep, great. And if I'm skipping over your questions, it's because I think Rob has answered them in other things that he has said. So I am not ignoring you, but I think they've been answered. Talk for a little bit about if someone is an illustrator and they want to approach you as an illustrator, is it important that they also have a story of their own? So
no. All of this, if you're just an illustrator, all of your submission, when you send me your portfolio with our submit at Ripple Grove Press, it gets put into a separate folder. So when we do see a story, I just went through them all. I click on each one to find that artist that complements that story well. So I still get that. Now I also have to share this with you. I have reached out to illustrators saying, I love your art. Mm-hmm. You have a story for me. And to this day, it has never happened. Oh. Nobody has a story. I'll even say, I love that little mouse that you drew climbing up a tree. Do you have a story with that mouse? Because it's really adorable and really sweet. And everyone says no. Oh. So it hasn't happened, but I have reached out to illustrators asking if they have a story, because I don't have a story for you at this moment. But if they had a fun story for me, mm-hmm. It actually happened. We're talking with somebody right now. She submitted a story. She is the illustrator, and she submitted a story with it. The story was just okay, but her art was so fun that I reached out to her and asked her if she had another story. Mm-hmm. We spoke on the phone. We talked about 3 other stories that were going on in her imagination, and we're probably going to be moving forward for 2000. That's great. So it's just, if that spoke to me. So I do like, because it also shows that the illustrators really, it's hard writing a children's book. It's very hard. Mm-hmm. But I like that the illustrators, like, again, I've seen something really cool, like a snowman under a palm tree, and they don't have a story with it. They just drew a snowman under a palm tree. So, okay. Again, I'm just making that up. But.
All right. Well, that's good to know. I'm sure the illustrators out there start writing. That's what the bottom line is there.
Put something together.
Yeah. Yeah. If a book is self-published and say through Smashwords, or they've self-published it as an ebook and put it up on Amazon, is that something that they can still submit to you?
We still get that. People will physically mail me their self-published book or send me a file. Kind of. I'll still look at it. If it's really, really beautiful,
Mhm.
uh, then I would certainly discuss it. But it happens, and I just,
Mhm.
yeah, I haven't been wowed. I haven't yet, no
Right.
offense to the
So
people, but
self-publishing doesn't take them out of the running, is what you're saying. Would you prefer that if it was a
I prefer that
self-publishing?
it wasn't.
You're right. Right. Okay, so you prefer that it wasn't self-published.
I
Yeah.
prefer that it hasn't been out there on Amazon for 3 years,
Hmm.
sitting out.
Hmm.
So I prefer that for so many reasons. It's it's already done.
Yeah.
It's already done. So I haven't had any effect in illustrating it and finding the artist and
Hmm. Right. Right.
yeah.
And
So
that would be a big consideration. Yeah.
yeah. So
All right. Do you look at agented submissions differently than unagented submissions, or does it make any difference to you?
a majority of our submissions we do get agent submissions, or we get a majority are unsolicited
Mhm.
because of our small press. So it's more of that than agent, but we do look at that. I mean, if an agent sent me a story,
Mhm.
but a lot of agents think that we're small, that we're too small to even move forward together on. So
Mhm. Mhm. Several people are asking, as far as, do you respond to every submission? If you don't want to publish it, do you respond, or can they just assume if they haven't heard in a certain period of time that you're not interested?
um, we do not respond anymore. You get a bounce back. If you submit a story to me, our email bounces back, thank you for submission. It will be read in, I believe we say 5 months,
Mhm.
and it does get read. Please know, we read everything. I do open your email and it does get read.
Mhm.
And we only publish a few a year, so the story really has to really speak to us. But we do not reply anymore. We used to,
Mhm.
but we get so many now that I can't respond to 3,000. I can't personally respond to 3,000.
Mhm.
Not to mention the hundreds that we receive a year to our PO box.
Mhm.
Um, so we can't respond, and we don't send back. We don't even send back. People still send us self-addressed stamped envelopes. We used to do that, and the time
Right.
that it would take to put their manuscript back in the envelope and bring it to the post office, we just
Yeah.
don't have that. Unfortunately, I'm happy that I'm that busy, and I'm happy that I have that many submissions, but I just don't.
Mhm. Right.
So.
So is it acceptable if someone submits to you, they haven't heard back in, say, 3 months, you may still be reading it, or it still is in your pile. Can they also submit to other publishers at that time, or do you want it exclusively for a
No,
certain?
I mean people do both. If you send it to another publisher and we called you and you sign with us, you need to contact everyone you sent it out to and say, I have been signed. Please remove my submission from your consideration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'll take it both ways. I mean, if there's times that we see a story and Amanda and I stew on it. Like we put it aside and maybe it really hasn't happened. Now we're at a point, I don't think it happens because it happened when we first started out because we would really think about the story, but now we just know what we're looking for. We don't know what we're looking. I can tell you what I'm not looking for, but when we see something we would really like interest and we're talking about it and getting excited about it, we'll reach out to you and hopefully, if you submit it to other places, we would ask, and we have asked, please contact the other publishers and tell them your story has been pulled. And then when you hopefully have signed a contract with us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Now, a couple people have asked, what is the maximum number of words per story that you prefer? And we talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the webinar, but do you have, if you said, 2,000 words is really as much as I think a picture book could possibly hold. Please don't send me anything longer than that. Or do you have a word limit?
No, I mean, if there was something, if 2,000 words, you're losing. I'm not going to sit there and I have so many submissions to go through. it's I feel like it's really not capturing the children's picture book. It's too wordy. So then if I even liked it, then I'm like, how do I cut this back? Somebody actually, I reached out to somebody that submitted something, and I really liked it, but it was just too long. And I tried to crop it. And as I was cropping it, I lost all of that story, and I felt bad that we didn't move forward on it. But on the other hand, it just was like, it was too long, even though I liked it. And yeah, so.
Right.
And then please note, and hopefully the people on this chat, even if we made it really long, let's say we went more pages, there's cost factors. For every page added, it's costing more for the book to be printed and made. So I need, I also have to take that into consideration when we are making a book. So it's really long. Because I feel when parents turn a page and there's like a lot of text on every page, I feel like the child can lose a little interest. And if it is wordy, then usually it's very descriptive, which is not a picture book, because the picture you're taking away. If it's so wordy, you're definitely getting into imagery and things like that. And I just want, keep it.
Great. I'm going to ask you, some small presses don't pay advances because, again, they have much smaller budgets to work with, or they pay authors maybe a flat fee instead of a royalty, that kind of thing. What is your structure as far as author agreements?
For writers, for authors, it's off the net sale of the book.
Okay. So a royalty is what you're saying?
Royalty, yes.
Okay, great. And with illustrators, do you do royalties, or is it a case-by-case basis?
Case-by-case basis, a little an advance, a small advance, and royalty.
Okay.
But case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. I want to put your submission link in the chat box here, but I just wanted to ask you, and then I'll get to the questions that were kind of addressed to me. If you could sum up again for us, for people who maybe came in a little late, what you are looking for, which I know you've said many times, a wonderful book, but are there any particular qualities? And maybe easier is what you don't want to see. And we talked a little bit about what you've seen too much of, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
I would love the writers, besides it being well written, I want your imagination to go somewhere different. I can't stress this enough to the writers out there. Please read children's picture books. It is noticeable to me when somebody is not going 4 times a year, every season, and sitting down and reading what is current and what is out there on the shelves. And I want something really imaginative. I want to be, I really don't want to read what you did on your summer vacation. I want to read something, and I don't want it to be, kooky or too silly. I don't want, people will tell me to share this with you. I mean, people tell me like, this is a mix between Dr. Seuss and Alice in Wonderland. I don't want to read that. Alice in Wonderland's been done. Dr. Seuss has been done. I don't want to read anything like that. I mean, I read it because I read all your submissions, but I want something really different. So I can't really explain. I mean, I can go on and on about telling you what I don't want, but what I'm looking for is just the pacing. I want to see that really fun, different title, and that's not too long, and just really bring me in. Just really different concept. It's not It doesn't involve bodily function, and that is not too wacky. Because
Okay.
please know, I want to read that over and over and over again. I read it over and over again before I call you, and then I want that book to be read over and over and over at bedtime.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And as we talked about earlier, slice of life stories are fine. They don't have to have a big tension-filled plot to them. But you are not really looking for board books and concept books, those really young books.
Yeah, not right now.
Okay. Great. Well, I just wanted to give you a compliment here in our chat box. One of our viewers said, your focus on good stories warms the hearts of story lovers. Your background gives you a strong sense of what appeals to children. So although the odds of any one story rising to the top are small, you are the kind of press we storytellers would be proud to call our publishing home. You have a lovely spirit.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. Who said that?
C.J. Wellner.
All right. Thank you very much.
There you go. That was wonderful. Well, I put your submission link in the chat box there, and also if you go to ripplegrovepress.com, you'll see it on the website. Definitely go check out the books. Go to the bookstores and read the books.
Go to the bookstores, ask for the book, or go to your library and order them if your library doesn't have our books.
Yes.
Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, that's a great way to support small presses too, is to go to the library and ask for their book. And it might not be in your library circulation, but if people start asking for it, they'll purchase a copy for their library.
Exactly. And sometimes a county will order more than one copy, and they'll go into their their district, and they'll order more for other people to see.
Right. Now, when people submit to you, do you want, first of all, do you prefer electronic submissions or mail, or does it matter?
We prefer the email. I prefer that. I mean, we still get submissions to our P.O. box. I do read all of those. They get piled, when I get a certain amount, I sit down and read them. I prefer the email and with not an attachment anymore. So, because there's a lot of time. So I just want to see, you could just put it into the text.
Okay. Okay. Do you want them to put in the subject line that they were at this webinar?
Sure. You can say it in your query.
In your query letter?
You can put it in wherever. You can put it in the subject if you want, and but please put your title in the
subject. And know that he reads everything, so it may take a while. What is sort of your estimated time frame now on reading? You're about 2 months out at this point?
2 months out. I think I'm still at the end of March. I'll get through that soon, and then
okay.
It'll be April, and then by then it'll be June. So
yeah.
2 months out.
Someone did ask, if they submitted to you in January and have not heard back, can they assume that you're not interested?
You can assume that.
Okay, great. But you can try with another manuscript. Maybe you've learned something from this webinar, so that will help you. So, all right, great. Well, I'm going to stick around and answer some more questions, but Rob, you're welcome to take off. I know you probably have dinner with your family. Do you have a little girl? I thought I saw on your Facebook page. Maybe it's not your kid. Maybe it was just
somebody else.
But I was going to say, maybe you have to go have dinner with your family. So
we don't post too much of that, but yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great.
Great talking with you. I look forward to reading everybody's story. And thanks for your time.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Robin. I hope that you all will send him some wonderful books, and
Thank you. Me too. Look forward to reading your really great stories.
Great. Great.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Bye.
See you later. Thanks. All right. Well, I'm still here, so we can, I'll finish up with whatever questions that we didn't get to. And again, if I skipped your question with Rob, it's because I felt that he covered it already in what he had said. But I thought that was wonderful. He was very generous with his time and What a dream publisher to work with, huh? So what I do want to say to all of you, it's very generous of him to come on and talk to us like this and to say, please send me manuscripts. I would like to say, as CBI subscribers, I know that we are a cut above the average writer, because we know that it's important to revise our work, have it critiqued, revise it again before we submit it, and let it sit. It's better to let it sit and percolate a couple weeks and go back to it and look at it again. You have one shot with your manuscript, and if he's 2 months out on his reading as it is, there is no rush. So I would rather see him get your best work than your fastest work. And we like to have these opportunities for you, but we don't want to abuse them. And so, you know, I know you all will do that, and you will send your very best revised manuscripts. And please let us know if you get published by Ripple Grove Press. We would love to hear about that. Okay, so let me see what we didn't get to today on your questions that maybe I can help with. And by the way, if you came in kind of a little bit late, if you go up to the top of the chat box, I put a link in there to our 27th anniversary sale that we're having. You also got an email from John today about this. But I just wanted to make sure you all saw that. If you're considering buying one of our writing blueprints, 27% off this week. So there you go. And as Lynn Marie reminded us, thank you, Lynn. Lynn is one of our valued regular contributing editors who does our author or our editor and agent spotlight profiles, that she did interview Rob for the December 2016 issue of CBI. So you can always go back in the archives and look at that one too and see if you learn more about him than what you did today. Though that particular submission opportunity, the submission code that he gave us, has expired. So you would just submit now saying you were on this webinar. Okay, let's see. Okay. Michelle asks, I've written a picture book bio written in verse on a Japanese artist, but I'm having a hard time getting a hold of her for permission. Any suggestions on how to do this? I would hate to just forget about this manuscript. Yeah, you know, if she's an artist, does her work appear in any galleries that you can contact? I assume that you have seen if she has a website. A lot of times artists have agents, but you would find out that information on her website. So I don't have a whole lot of advice for you beyond that. Facebook, see if she's got a Facebook page. Sometimes they're on LinkedIn. So I would try all of those social media, Twitter, if she has a Twitter account. You can follow her, you can contact her through Twitter. So exhaust all the social media you can. I would imagine if she's an artist and she's actively selling her work and out there, that she probably is on social media. Now, she might not be responding to your request. So, you know, if anybody else has any suggestions beyond what I just said, please put them in the chat box, because I may have forgotten something there. But that can be tough. And I know if it's a story about someone who's alive, you do kind of want to tell them you're doing this, because it's a courtesy and it's just a good thing to do before submitting the manuscript anywhere. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go to, I think I skipped a couple from the Q&A here. Okay, is there a quick and dirty way to tell if your story is a picture book or simply a short story for a magazine? Basically, picture books are very dependent on the illustrations to tell part of the story, whereas short stories aren't. you might have 1 or 2 illustrations for a short story, and they basically depict what's going on in the words. Whereas a picture book, you have a level of story that happens just in the illustrations, and it expands on the text. And the two of them together create the entire story. So if you have written a short story that can stand alone without illustrations, meaning that there's probably a little bit more description than you would have in a picture book, and that it is completely understandable, you get the entire content, all of the humor, everything from the words alone, then it is probably a magazine story. Now, some stories work in both places, but very few really, because as I said, picture books are written to be dependent on the art to tell part of the story. And again, as with anything else, if you read a bunch of magazine short stories and then read some picture books side by side, you'll start to see the difference between them there. John asked, do you have any pricing info on the Picture Book Summit this fall? That is coming very soon. We are going to start sending out early bird pricing information right after Memorial Day, so stay tuned. I have been sworn to secrecy on any details with Picture Book Summit, so that's all I can tell you right now. But if you're on our mailing list, if you attended a previous summit, you will get the early bird info. If you have never attended a Picture Book Summit, go to picturebooksummit.com, and there is a place on that website where you can give us your information and you'll get on the mailing list. Picture Book Summit is not a CBI event. We are partners with 3 other people, so it's actually a separate entity beyond Children's Book Insider, which is why I don't have total control over how the information is leaked. So you have to wait for right after Memorial Day, but it's coming soon, and this is going to be an awesome, awesome conference this year. Okay. If you have a story that has an animal character with asthma or a breathing problem, how bad is it to mention that the cause may have been due to smoking? Is that the kind of thing not politically correct? Well, it's not that it's not politically correct, but in a picture book, you're not really going to have a character. Your protagonist is not going to have a breathing problem due to smoking if they are a child, or an animal character that really represents a child, that kind of thing. Now, your main character might be a child and they might have a parent who has a health issue. But the story really wouldn't be about what caused the parent's health issue. It would be about how the child is dealing with a sick parent. So I don't think it's not that it's not politically correct, it's just not really within the realm of the picture book audience. Now, when you get into older fiction, middle grade YA, you could certainly talk about smoking caused this problem, because you've got your readers might be smoking themselves or considering smoking because their friends do, and that kind of thing. So I just don't think that quite fits in the picture book universe. John asks again, do you need it to have a website if you haven't published anything? How important is that? I think it's important, if you are taking your writing seriously, that from the beginning, you at the very least purchase your URL so that you have it ready when you need it. And I think the best URLs for writers are their name, because you want your name to become recognizable and you want people to be able to find you easily. And writers who have kind of cutesy names for their websites and it's in the URL, it's hard to remember. So if you can purchase the URL, that is your name, and at the very least, put together a really simple blog and just start blogging once in a while about the topic of your book, or being a writer, or funny little anecdotes about, you know, how hard it was to sit down today at the computer, whatever, just to sort of start getting a presence online. It doesn't mean you're going to have a ton of followers or anything right now, but you want to start putting those building blocks in place so that when you get a publishing contract, you can say, okay, Now I'm going to recreate my blog. I'm going to redesign it so it fits the theme of my book, and it really reflects who I am now as a writer, and I'm starting to build a brand and that kind of thing. So early on, get that URL, and WordPress is a great platform for very simple websites and blogs. They have templates that you can just plug in and just start kind of getting out there a little bit. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, you can link everything together, and just get that started as soon as possible. Okay. What is the best example of a business card? Do you have one? Can we see it? Oh my gosh, John, you're just asking me so many questions. I do have a business card, but I can't get at it right now because my purse is in the other room. But again, there are templates online. Very easy to create a business card and to order them online. They're cheap. I think, again, if you have that website, that goes on your business card, the URL. Any social media, your Twitter, Facebook, all of that goes on your business card. This is how people are going to find you. Obviously, your name, email. So however you want people to contact you. I don't think you necessarily have to have your address and phone number on your business card, because if you have email, people could get in touch with you, and you might not want your phone number all over the place. But I think, you know, your business card also is a reflection of who you are as a writer, so it's part of your brand. So at the beginning, when you're just starting to write, you might not have a real brand yet. So you just want a very simple business card, make it look classy, with all the pertinent contact info on it, and you might have it say writer on it. Once you have a book about to come out, you can get business cards with your book cover printed on the back, which is a great tool when you're at conferences and, you know, talking to bookstore owners or whatever. To have your book cover on there is a great thing. But that's down the road. So at the beginning, I think just keep it simple, classy, but have all your contact info on it. And again, the font you choose should kind of reflect who you are as a person. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but should have a little personality to it. You're writers, you should be a little creative. And if you're an illustrator, have a picture on your business card. Okay. Okay, so Sherry asked, and Rob did cover this a little bit when he was on with me. If a book is published by Ripple Grove Press, can you do a book event at a Barnes & Noble or independent bookstore to launch it? Or are there other restrictions? He said, absolutely, they will support. If you want to do stuff locally with your bookstore, they encourage you to do that. I'm sure they would help you with publicity materials, making sure the books get there to the bookstore, that kind of thing. They do events in the Oregon area, and they're in Portland for any new books that come out. They have a big social media presence. I've seen their Facebook page. They do a lot of they talk up their books a lot. They send the book out for reviews everywhere. They do all the traditional stuff, but they do support their authors in doing events locally. They don't expect you to do a big nationwide author tour, but locally they very much would like you to do that. Oh, this one I forgot to ask him. I'm so sorry, Missy. Do awards such as Highlights Author of the Month, congratulations, she just found out she won that, matter to publishers, and should I include that in my queries? What about a professional background in communication? I think yes. I think if you win an award like that, absolutely put it in your query letter. It shows that you have reached a certain level of recognition in your writing, and that is wonderful. And professional background in communications, I think mentioning that briefly is also good. It also shows that you are good at talking to people, that you probably can write a good press release for yourself if you need to. So those things I think are important, and I would mention it briefly in your query letter. Let's see. There was a couple questions that came in via email that I am going to answer here real quick, and then I think we're about done, unless Y'all have anything else you want to ask me? Someone asked if Ripple Grove was going to publish middle grade, and Rob, he and I discussed this actually earlier before the webinar, and he said they're staying right now on fiction picture books. So nonfiction, they're not even that interested in. If you have a story that's maybe based on a true event, but you fictionalized it and created a really wonderful story around it, that might be something that he would consider. But they are really just trying to get into the fiction picture book market for now. And they're still very young as a press. You know, once they've been around for 5 or 6 years and sort of made their mark and gotten a reputation as a publisher of really wonderful picture books, then they'll be more able to branch out into other genres and possibly other age groups. I don't know. But right now it's fiction picture books. Okay, I got a couple questions about narrative nonfiction, which is a big buzzword now in the picture book market. What narrative nonfiction is nonfiction that reads like a story. So it has a beginning, middle, and end. There's usually a conflict of some sort that needs to be resolved. There's tension. The tension builds as the book, you know, progresses. Then there's a resolution, very much like fiction, but it's true. So often picture book biographies might be written this way, but instead of telling the person's entire life from cradle to grave, you take a portion of their life and you write about some significant achievement they had, but the obstacles they faced along the way to create this invention or to you know, have this breakthrough that they had that they're known for. One of my favorite narrative nonfiction books, which has actually been around quite a while, is Snowflake Bentley by Jacqueline Briggs Martin. And this book actually won the Caldecott Award many years ago. Beautifully illustrated, and for the life of me, the illustrator is slipping my mind, and I'm very sorry about that. But it is about Snowflake Bentley, that was his nickname, who invented a way to photograph snowflakes. And this does start when he's a child, because he loves snow more than anything, and he wanted to be able to save snow. This is something that came out of his childhood. And so that created his sort of passion and his life's work to figure out a way to save snow. And he invented a camera that could photograph snowflakes. And that changed the way we know, you know, everything we know about snowflakes and what they look like, and the whole study of snow changed because of what he did. So that, thank you, Patricia. She put Mary Azaran, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the illustrator of Snowflake Bentley. She did it with woodcuts. They're just gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. So take a look at that. Most libraries are going to have that book. That is a narrative nonfiction. It reads like a story. The writing is beautiful. You use fiction techniques with the writing, but everything in it is true. But it's hard because you have to find that nugget of plot within the true event to really create narrative nonfiction. But that is a big, hot topic right now in picture books. A lot of publishers are looking for this because these books can be used in the schools, and they tie in with STEAM topics, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I just learned last night they're adding reading to that, so it's called STREAM. Pretty soon we're going to have this huge word. But basically, any books that can, you know, a teacher can read out loud to a class during reading time, but that it also ties in with history or with science or with math, is really big right now. That's what publishers are looking for. Is it possible to have an inanimate object as the main character in a picture book? From Mary. And this is one I meant to ask Rob when he was on, and again, I apologize. I was trying to get to all the questions and I overlooked this one. But I have a feeling his answer would be very similar to mine, which is there have been some successful picture books with inanimate objects. It depends on the object. A kind of rule of thumb for me, and again, you're going to find exceptions to this, but if the object does not have a face and the artist can't easily give it a face without changing the entire object too much, and or the object has no way of moving, it's stuck in one place, I think it's hard to make it into a picture book character. Because think about the illustrations. If your object is not able to move from one place to the next, your illustrations are always going to be of the same scene. It might be coming at it from different angles, but you're kind of drawing the same picture over and over. And books have to have a page turning quality. So then you have to somehow create tension within this static scene. And that is really hard to do. If an object does not have a face, it is difficult to give it a personality. And again, picture books are a visual medium. So you can tell a child that cloud looks happy, but unless you can draw a cloud looking happy, the kid's not going to believe it. So it as with a lot of answers, is it depends. But just think about the challenges you're giving yourself. If you create an inanimate object as your main character and this object can't move, doesn't have a face, and yet we have to believe that there is an emotional connection there. The reader is going to have an emotional connection with this object, because you need to always have, your reader always has to have an emotional connection with your protagonist to care about the story. So you have to work extra, extra hard to create that with an inanimate object that isn't something like a toy, for example, that has a face and that kids sort of already believe, you know, is alive. So that's my answer there. Let's see. Oh, I had one more group of questions here about ebooks. Oh, actually, I had two questions here. Oh, Waiting by Kevin Henkes. That is a great book. And again, the objects have faces. So that's a really good example of the right way to do inanimate objects. Yes, we immediately believe that all of those objects have feelings because they have faces and they're looking out the window. Yeah. School's First Day of School. Yes. Now that is by Adam Rex. That is an exception to the rule. And again, like I said, there's always exceptions. If you're super, super, super talented like he is, you can pull this off. So go look at that. That's your standard to reach. Let's see. Janelle asked, is it best to find editors with experience in children's picture books to edit my picture books? Now, if you are planning on self-publishing, yes, you want to try to find editors who know the children's book market, who know what children's books are supposed to be to edit your book. You can have a really wonderful editor who edits adult books and you hand them a chapter book for ages 7 to 10 and they don't get it. They're like, well, there's not enough subplots, you know, or they'll say things like that because they don't understand the chapter book age group and what those books are. So anytime you are hiring a freelance editor, you want to try to have an editor who has experience in what you're writing to edit you. Okay, so Tessa asks some ebook questions here. Does the margin in an ebook really matter? So we're talking about the margins around the edge of the ebook. I mean, you can design your ebook however you want. But you have to think about it's most likely going to be read on a device like an iPad and possibly even a smartphone. So if your margins are really wide and you've got it on a smartphone, you're not going to have a whole lot of text in the middle of the page. It's going to be a very narrow column of text. So, you know, you want the margins on an ebook to look pretty much like the margins on a print book. If you're like a novel, they're not that wide. They're maybe a ½ inch all the way around. And that's kind of what you're going for with the ebook as well. Is there a popular format for an ebook, or must you present it according to certain standards? Again, I would just look at other ebooks that are out there. You can download a lot of free ones from Amazon and just sort of see different designs that people have tried, and you want to pick one that fits your story. If your story is illustrations, it's going to have a different format layout than if it's solid text. So that just is a little investigating on your part. And she asked, may I present it to a publisher here in South Africa as well as on Amazon? Well, you heard what Rob just said. As a publisher, if a book has been published on Amazon, self-published, it's already out there. And it's kind of a little strike against it. It doesn't mean he's not going to read the manuscript or look at the book, and he might love it, but it's already been out there. So he's kind of putting a lot of time and money into something that people have already seen in a different form. And publishers are less likely to do that. Now, the exception to that is if you put your book out on Amazon and it sells a gazillion copies, publishers will come knocking at your door. Okay. But if you've put it on Amazon and you haven't sold that many, publishers probably not going to want to see it. So if you are planning on submitting it to a publisher, I would do that first. If they turn it down, then you can put it out on Amazon. And the other thing, and I've read this several places, if you are submitting a book that you have already self-published to a publisher, submit it like a manuscript. Don't send them a copy of the finished book. Because again, they're going to want to put their own design on it. They might even want to change the illustrations unless the illustrations you have are world-class, top-notch illustrations. But if they're not, and you have to be honest about this, if they're ones you created yourself from clip art, if they are ones that your 10-year-old, who's a very talented 10-year-old artist, created for you, that sort of thing, you probably want to just submit the text as a manuscript. Tell the publisher in the query letter or the cover letter that it's been self-published, but that you are resubmitting it just in manuscript form and starting over with it. And then you will have the best chance of them actually sort of seeing it fresh as a manuscript submission. Okay, oh, someone asked, let me just, scrolling up here, I'm almost done here. Lynn said, Vistaprint is great and how I got my business card. Yes, they are good. We've used them as well. Oh, thank you, Evelyn, for saying there's a Japanese American National Library in San Francisco and in a museum in LA, perhaps contacting them. Great suggestion. I love Lynn Marie's interviews and CBIs from Della. Yes, Lynn Marie's interviews are amazing. We're very lucky to have her. Oh, thank you, Ashley. I love all your blueprints. I'm actually scrolling for questions. I'm not just scrolling for compliments here. I think I hit it all here. Oh, Patricia asked, do you have any critique openings? I am not taking on new critique clients at this time. I am busy with the blueprints and certain clients that I've already had, and I don't really have new openings. However, if you have any of our writing blueprints, each blueprint has an online Facebook group and critique group associated with it that have been very, very successful. All the members of the critique groups have really loved it. They take it very seriously, and I think they're very beneficial to everyone who's joined. I can refer you to some other critiquers. If you want, you can email me. I'm going to put my email right here. Laura@write.org. So it's Laura@writeforkids.org. If you want a referral to someone else for manuscript critique, just drop me an email. Okay, so let's see. I think I've covered. Oh, how many words should be in a blog post? Actually, blog posts should always be under 1,000 words and probably under 750. You don't want them too long. People want those quick little boom, boom, boom that they're going to scroll through. And if you have followers who subscribe to your blog, you know, they're going to want to see what's new and they're going to want to be able to read it real quick and then move on with their day. So you don't want to get too long with those blog posts. But it makes it easy to post more often if they're short. Though sometimes writing a short post can be harder than writing a long one. Peter asked, would love to attend SCBWI conference in New York someday, but what can I focus on in the meantime? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there, Peter, as far as information, what to write. So if you're still here and you want to clarify that question, I'm happy to answer it. We'll be here for about 2 more minutes. Thank you for asking the question. Oh, you also asked, Peter, is it necessary to include degrees and teaching experience in a query? I think if you have a degree or experience that is relevant to writing children's books, you should include it. If you are an elementary school teacher, put that in. If you're a college professor, but you happen to be writing about a topic that you teach at the college level, then yes, that's relevant because it shows you're an expert in this topic. So you kind of have to, you know, use some judgment there. Some people have very long resumes, and of course you're not going to include every bit of job experience that you've ever had. So think about what's relevant to the book you're writing. That might give you a little more credibility as the author, and include that. Okay, oh, sorry, I put OG. Yeah, Laura@writeforkids.org is my email. Thank you, Bev, for catching that. Yeah, put OG, it'll bounce back to you. My fingers are tired. Okay, well, I think we're done. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to send you the replay link, so if you want to see Rob again, you'll be able to. And thank you for all your lovely comments and good, happy anniversary wishes for John and I on our 27th year of business. And we'll see you next time on our next Ask Me Anything webinar. So have a good night, everybody. Bye.